Good evening, everybody. Today is Thursday, June 30th, 2016. I call this meeting to order. It's the meeting of the Communications Committee at 7 p.m. And we're at Elmhurst City Council. I think everyone who's in the audience knows what we're here for and knows a little bit about public comment should they want to comment. Agenda item 2, at this time, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to provide comment? Head shakes, no. I think everyone knows where we are. Okay, we're going to jump right in. General update. Any general updates from Park District?
No, we can just cover when we get to that point.
Okay. Jim, do you have any general updates? Okay. Okay. We'll cover, the only general update I have is the same one I had last time, which is elmhurststormwaterplan.org. elmhurststormwaterplan.org. That is where Elmhurst residents can go to find the current status of any project that we're currently working on. The other thing I would recommend is that every other Monday we have committee meetings. So first and third Mondays of the month are council, second and fourth Mondays are committee. At the beginning of every Public Works Committee, in fact, the first 50%, if not 2/3 of the meeting is spent on stormwater projects and stormwater updates. So if you want to get a very specific answer about a specific project, I suggest you either contact your alderman or go to those meetings. That's my general update. On to agenda item 4, City and School, District 205. I think the public is aware, District 205 sent us a letter informing us that they will no longer be participating in these meetings. We have had a couple of private meetings with them at their offices to move stuff forward, but if you want an update from the schools, you'll have to go to them to get that. We've got Bryan Gravel Lot. I can give an update on that, and that is that, as all are aware, one of the Burke plans, let's see if I can get this. Oh, look at this. Do we got a new slide for that? That's kind of cool. All right. Oh, that's it. Okay. Yep. Is that Brian? Yep. Okay. As all are aware, the city has proposed using the southwest corner of the Bryan Middle School lot to put a stormwater project in there that would hold 23 acre-feet. We have been working with schools for a couple of years now to try to figure out what sort of compensation they would want if we were to do that. We did receive about a week and a half, I'd say 2.5 weeks ago at this point, their final ask. So it totals up as such. Right now that portion of Bryan is used for what I'll call passive storage. It's a gravel lot. It's got some gravel on it and wood chips and some other stuff. The school has requested that they get a necessary amount of land to continue the function of that lot at our Public Works garage, which is in the further southwest corner of Elmhurst. They want to sell the land to us and buy land from us, and the difference in the valuation at this point is $650,000. It asks us to pick up the tab on the $650,000 difference in the value of the land. They have asked that the land that they purchase get improved to building ready, is what I'll call it, grade it, cap it, put down asphalt. We estimate that that cost will be between $350,000 and $400,000. And then most recently, the school district sent us a letter saying, in addition to that, I'll call it damage to remainder, it's probably not the correct term, but the school district wanted to be compensated for future loss at Bryan Middle School for the loss of what they could have used that space for, and they've requested an additional $350,000. That's really what City Council has been waiting for, so that the City Council can dig into it, ask questions, maybe go back with some different ideas with the school district. As a result of all of those asks, follow-up letters, and emails, we requested that the school district provide the city with a revised IGA, a fully full-blown IGA with all their changes and all their requests in it, because up until that point, we just had memos and notes. The school district did provide us with a revised IGA last week, middle of last week, and I don't know how, 35 pages, something, I can't remember. But our staff has looked at it and will be prepared to provide comments and bring that IGA to the Public Works Committee on what day, Jim? Oh, next week. Is it?
Possibly the 11th.
Possibly the 11th. Okay. So next steps on Bryan Junior High, Bryan Middle School would be review of IGA at on the 11th. I would add to that this is the first time that council and committee will have an opportunity to review the IGA in total. In addition, it's the first time that the committee will have had an opportunity to review the entire concept and all of the asks that the school district have. So I'm not saying it's a good thing that we finally have all the parameters from the school district, but I know there's going to be questions and probably some questions to be asked of the school district as it relates to Bryan. So that's where we are with that. IGA will be reviewed at that time. I don't think it'll get approved in one meeting. There will probably be questions back to District 205. Not on here. I guess I can do that under wrap-up, because I know Park District can't wait to chime in. That concludes agenda item 4. Do you have anything else to add about the school districts, Jim?
No.
All right. Park District, since I've been doing all the talking, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Rogers and see if he wants to kick it off.
Sure. But I guess I'll kick it off. 5.1 is your commons, and at this point, I think it's the cities to update on that. The Park District, through our consultant V3, provided comments back on the current set of plans on May 3rd. And since that time, even as was discussed at our last meeting, we're waiting back for comment on those, and I think that's our outstanding issue at this point. Schedule was discussed last meeting as well, and there was agreement, understanding it would be August, so we're fine in regard to the Smalley Pool. So just looking for update on the plans.
I know that we received specs on the valve, I think yesterday, the sideways valve. Our engineers are going over it right now, and the plan is to send it over to V3 either tomorrow or Monday. Tuesday. We could send it Monday. No one's going to be there. Is there any other engineering questions, Jim, that you're aware of? Jim Grabowski?
I would say basically all the comments that V3 had will be addressed in this next issue. I think there was some question about the electrical and where it could be located. So all that should be addressed with this next correspondence.
Okay, we'll look forward to receiving that.
Okay.
Moving on then to Golden Meadows. We've had some very good progress, which has been reported both to Park Board and City Committee as well. Following this committee's last meeting on, I believe it was the 9th of June. Then immediately the next day afterwards, we began reaching out to DNR. And then about a week after the meeting, City Manager Grabowski and I had a conference call, I should say, with a gentleman named Bob Appelman, who is the Director of Engineering Grants, and I'm forgetting the third term, but with DNR. He's the guy we need to talk to. We originally reached out to the Director of DNR, Wayne Rosenthal, and we were directed to work directly with his staff, which is good. I think it will help to expedite. Jim and I had the opportunity on that conference call to explain the concept of the entire plan, the IGA, what was being proposed. We talked about requesting conversion and an exception to the timing to replace the property. Kind of went through the whole deal with Mr. Appelman. He was very receptive to it, understood it completely. Really, I think one of the best things that came out of it, and Jim and I think we're both kind of pleasantly surprised, was that it was obvious even over the phone that he had a file in front of him that was the materials from earlier conversations going all the way back to 2014 that I had with DNR, that I had with a grant administrator who has since retired. So the good thing is that there was institutional history and memory there, and documentation had been passed along. So we had a very good conversation. in advance of that conversation, we had sent down the draft of the IGA as well as some drawings so he could understand it. Again, very good conversation. He understood it. They indicated they will work with us. They will support us in our effort to do this, and indicated that the next step would be then for DNR to review it in a little bit more detail, and then reach out to the National Park Service in Omaha, with whom he described them as having good relations and them being reasonable. He asked us to put together kind of a one-pager, a statement, what he called it, a statement of intent, and then also send an additional map showing the boundaries of the entirety of Golden Meadows, so they can understand, just have in front of them, both for themselves and the National Park Service, what the property the grant restrictions were under, and then to detail the specific area, which, as we all know, is the western portion of the park that's being requested for this exception to the conversion. So we then did that, sent that back on the 17th of June. After Jim and I worked together mutually to develop that statement of intent, we then sent those back down to DNR. I followed up with Mr. Appleman both end of last week and beginning of this. Spoke with him on, I think it was Tuesday of this week. He was in receipt of the additional information, was talking with, reviewing with another one of the DNR grant administrators, and he sounded confident that they would have it to the National Park Service most likely next week, so that week of July 4. So it was very good. We also, Jim and I should mention on our initial phone call, also talked with him about the 2 points that are outstanding in the IGA, those being the appraisal process, that notion of getting 3 appraisals, dropping the high and low, and using the middle appraisal, and then also the timing of the replacement property, whether DNR would or the National Park Service might put any restrictions on that. So again, Mr. Appleman understands that and will work with that. So very, very positive conversations. Things are moving ahead. One interesting side note is I talked today with an appraiser that we use. We were talking about another conversation, but I mentioned to him that probably shortly we would be approaching him about this appraisal, and I mentioned to him the 3 appraisals and dropped the 2 at the middle, and he said that that's very similar to a process that IDOT uses with appraisals of properties that are in question, or there might be disputes between parties, not to indicate that this is a dispute at this point in time, but difference of opinion. He said it's very similar to a process that IDOT uses in terms of getting 3 and dropping the high and low and using the middle. So from all intentions, it sounds like our concept is on a good track. So we're in good shape there, and like I said, hopefully it goes to the National Park Service next week.
Mr. Rogers, did you, if I missed it, I apologize, so did you mention how long, or was there any indication how long we thought it was going to take once the National Park Services has everything?
No, and I'm trying to remember, I'm even looking at my notes here. I don't know that we specifically asked that. What I can do is I'll follow up with DNR again next week to kind of make sure it's out the door, and then ask if they have an idea. I'll be honest, I don't know that was a question that we asked. It certainly needs to be asked, so we would have an idea, but we didn't ask it, so we can certainly do that.
And then the follow-up question, that is, I know it's a little bit out of the norm, so there's probably not an official form. Do we anticipate just an email back that says looks good, or, you know?
That's a good question. As you said, because there's not an official, request for an exception form. I guess I'd also go off of the fact that in our conversation with DNR, DNR is in a very unique place right now. There are 2 grant administrators left on their staff. They used to have many, many more. And so we had a good, I think, very sort of casual conversation with Mr. Appleman. He didn't seem to be overly concerned with form and process. So I could see it being something as simple as, an email from the National Park Service to DNR and then DNR to us. Might they put it on letterhead so it becomes a little more official? Again, we didn't discuss form and function, and they didn't throw any out that, you need to fill out this 12-page form and have it notarized. None of that came out. Could still, I suppose, but hasn't yet at this point.
Yeah, and I'm not pressing for one.
Right.
Sounds good to me is the only email I need to see.
Yeah, well, right, and that was the verbal that we got and from DNR, and now hopefully, obviously I think we'd all feel good to at least get an email, so we've got something when folks change over that we've got it in front of us. But at this point, nothing's been raised.
Will you be sending a formal letter once we sign the agreements?
Sending it to who? To DNR?
Well, what we did a week and a half ago, we had a kind of a preliminary conversation with IDNR to see if we were going down the right track. All indications are that we are doing that. When both agencies, Park District and the city, approve this and sign it, will you be sending a formal letter to IDNR stating, we've signed this agreement, here's our process? And that's what I expected, was a formal letter from the Park District, because it's really your agreement.
Sure.
And they respond with a formal letter that
Good
says,
point. Yeah, good point.
yes, you have
Yeah.
permission to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, that would make sense. Right, I think the point you're making is that we may get the nods or the emails or the phone calls saying yes, but yeah, we can definitely formalize it.
Okay, I'm not cutting you off. Is that where you are, Jim, on, Jim Rogers on the?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so, from the city side, Public Works met last Monday night, and there has been enough changes in the IGA that they're sending a revised report to council for consideration with the IGA attached, the new IGA, with all of the changes. I think one of the biggest changes, and I think it was the Park District's suggestion, was doing the environmental before the purchase goes through, which just makes sense. A couple other tweaks, and I know there was a question about, I think, timing of when things would get started, and I think originally there was 6 months in there, is that what it was, or that's where we ended up? There were some questions on our end, but the timing that's in there now, I believe, is supported by committee. Is that right, Jim?
Correct. The question was the question that Director Rogers raised as to when the Park District would start the process for finding the replacement property. Initially, we had sent a draft over that said, you have a year, Park District. That wasn't acceptable. We came back with some language that's, I think actually we came up with some language that said within 6 months we'll make best efforts to start the process. The Public Works Committee discussed that again Monday night and found that to be acceptable, and so that's what's in the draft that's at the City Council right now.
And as I understood, if I may ask, are we still, and maybe you just said this, Mr. Mayor, I apologize, I was writing a note. The notion is not to take it to council quite yet for formal, or to take the report for approval, which is not actually approving the IGA itself. I think I'm saying that the right way, right? Because we've, I think on both of our ends, hoped to know that the appraisal process has the blessing of DNR, because, and then also clean up, if necessary, the timing or clarify, because we don't want to both approve that and then say, oh, the DNR wants us to tweak these couple things. So, right, approval of report and then final terms when they're done.
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay.
I think that's it on your comments in Gold Meadows. Is that it, Jim? Jim and Jim?
I think I just had one other question, was in regards to the environmental testing. We know the phase 1 was completed, came back clean, and I think the last time we were here, the phase 2 soil borings were going to be done. Are results back from those yet?
Yes, we did get the results from phase 2, and the test areas that they did came out clean. We still, we always have a reservation on that, because you never know when you start digging, you hit something small, but all indications were that it's a clean piece of property.
Great, thank you.
Okay. I guess I would like to see between both staffs, do we have a timeline on this? Or is it still just kind of waiting for?
It's really dependent on the IDNR getting back to us as to when we'll take it to our respective agencies. I can tell you our attorneys will work on cleaning up any language that they have to between now and then we'll just wait on that last piece as Jim Rogers just described it.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm good. Anything else before we move on, gentlemen?
Nope.
Okay, any other business? Oh, one other business.
I probably should have said this under general update, but last night we held the open house for the Geneva Avenue project. We had a good steady flow of residents with a lot of good questions, and that project is finishing up design. That will go out to bid and be under construction. The plan is to be under construction this fall.
Okay, any other business? No? In terms of recap and information needed, I'm going to finish my school district update, at least from my point of view. I think we're at the 95% review of the engineering for the schools.
Very close.
We got one thing we're missing on our end, and then we're going to send it over to them in the next day or so. And then the timeline that was discussed during committee, and it's posted on board docs, I think, is accurate, which is, I think it's August, isn't it?
Yes.
I shouldn't speculate. The timeline is on the city website. And this is the most recent version of Madison. As folks are aware, we were actually able to take over Adams, the street, and this homeowner whose driveway emptied out onto Adams, we just built them, we're going to build them a longer driveway. But ultimately, we have a bigger project at Madison. Gives us about 20% more storage and more added relief to the folks on Washington. As far as Jackson and York are concerned, discussions with the schools are ongoing. However, those projects are on hold until school is prepared to discuss them. We have an outstanding offer, or I should say a standing offer to them to come present both projects as currently designed by Burke that involve the York High School and Jackson School property. We're just waiting to get official word from them. I know they're doing Focus 205, which will take them through the end of this year. So we're waiting for them to hopefully nail down a date as to when they're willing to talk to us about that. And I think that's it for schools. And Park District, I think we just went over next steps as it relates to IDNR and national parks. Any other city updates? We'll get them at committee, but I don't see anything else. Jim?
Nope, nothing.
I do think it's important that we continue to have these meetings until, at the very least, York Commons is wrapped up. I will defer to everyone up here on the dais as to when they think we will have substantive information out of IDNR and national parks.
For Golden Meadows.
For Golden Meadows. Yeah, what did I say?
Okay.
For Golden Meadows. It's the 30th. How many meetings? When are your next two meetings, Park Board?
The next meeting, we'll have one meeting in July on July 25th.
One meeting on the 25th?
Yep.
Well, let's do this. Let's do a tentative meeting that week, and let's check in about the week before and see if there's anything to report. If not, we can postpone it. Does that sound all right? End of July? Yeah,
So
28th?
tentative, the 28th.
Does that sound good?
Yep.
Jim Grabowski, I'd ask you to fill in the schools. They're more than welcome to attend. We'll check back with elected officials on our side as well. Does that sound good? Okay, anything else before we adjourn the meeting? That's it. 27 minutes, shortest meeting ever. We're adjourned. Thank you.